I hadn't even had the M60 more than a few hours before I knew I was in over my head, and not the kind I could talk my way out of. Before I knew it, I'd be in a hornet's nest with a gun I'd only fired a few times in basic training. I wasn't even supposed to be anywhere near combat, or at least that's what I thought. My training was in supply and logistics, a desk job, but that never happened. I landed in Vietnam on a Wednesday morning, and by early afternoon things were starting to fall apart. Guys were getting called out one or two at a time, names read off, trucks pulling up, hauling them off to wherever they were needed. It went on like that most of the day. By the end of it, there were only a few of us left standing there, and I remember thinking, those were the infantry guys, so now I'll get my logistics assignment. So a staff sergeant walks over to us, looks us over, points me in the direction of an M60 machine gun with a pile of gear. Told me to grab the gun and make sure I had 1,000 rounds of ammo for it. If there wasn't, he would show me where to get more. That was it. No choice. Just told me I had a couple hours to figure it all out. I figured instead of wasting my time complaining about it, I would spend what little time I had to learn it. The men depend on this gun. It baffled me as to why they would hand it over to me. But in Nam, a lot of things didn't make sense. The next morning, we were moving out. Helicopters were coming in, gear getting thrown on, everybody already acting like they'd done it 100 times before. I was just trying to keep up, trying not to look like I didn't belong there, even though I knew I didn't. I had a guy with me carrying 4 belts of ammo and an ammo box. He would feed the gun and take it if something happened to me. A few of the guys grabbed 1 or 2 belts and hauled those. I had the gun and 3 belts. We lifted out and headed north, and you could see the ground change the further we went. The flat land dropped off. Mountains started closing in, and it didn't look like a place you'd want to be walking around in, especially not carrying this load. When we came down into the landing zone, it was already hot. You could hear it before we even touched down. Soon as we hit the ground, it picked up. Rounds coming in from somewhere ahead, snapping past, pinging off things and kicking up dirt, and everybody dropping at once trying to figure out where it was coming from. I went down as flat as I could. Things seemed like a chaotic blur. And then somebody yelled for the gun. And that's when it really hit me. I'd only had it a few hours, and now these guys were depending on me. I sat it up and started firing into the tree line in front of us. Long bursts. Longer than they probably should have been. I wasn't thinking about that. I was just trying to get something out there. The recoil was heavier than I remembered. It kept wanting to climb, and I was fighting it, trying to keep it down, trying to keep it where it needed to be. And at the same time, I'm thinking, this can't be right. I shouldn't be the one doing this. Guys were yelling, moving, trying to shift positions, some of them crawling, some just pressed flat, trying not to get hit, and it all kind of blended together. You couldn't pick out one thing from another. Then somebody next to me started yelling. I didn't catch what he said at first. Then I looked over, and he'd been hit. He wasn't moving much, just kind of laying there, trying to get his arms under him. And I remember thinking I should help him, I should do something, but at the same time I still had that gun in my hands, and they were still out there. This was all going south fast. I remember being confused and terrified. But I stayed on the gun and just kept firing. Everything seemed to slow down and speed up at the same time. It's hard to explain. 1 second felt stretched out, like you had time to think, and then the next it was already moving again before you caught up. I really have no idea how long it lasted. I think it was only a matter of minutes, but in my mind it seems like hours. But I do remember this. That was the moment everything changed for me. Up until then, I kept thinking maybe I'd get through it. Maybe I'd find a way to stay out of it. Maybe I just needed a little more time. That was gone. I realized right then this was what it was going to be. Airstrikes were called in, jets coming in low, fast, and when they dropped, the ground shook, and everything out in front of us just disappeared into smoke and dirt. It was incredible to watch, actually. They made a few passes like that. And then things settled down. Shortly after that, things started to move again. A medevac was called in for the wounded man. We got word that we'd be staying in the area a few days, trying to find where they'd pulled back to. So we started to dig in. Choppers started coming in later with resupply, ammo, food, water. Just dropping it in and getting out. That was a sure sign we would be there a while. I remember just sitting there for a few moments with that M60 next to me, looking at it, thinking how fast everything had erupted into chaos. Just hours before, I didn't even know I'd be carrying it. There would come a time when I couldn't imagine not having it. The Viet Cong had pulled back, but they didn't go very far, and we would find that out soon enough.